Hi everyone, hope you're doing well, being safe and being kind. Thank you so much for joining me for this video and welcome to Tarot by the Pines or Tarot by the Christmas Tree. I am your elf for this channel, Jason. So my last video was about me experiencing tarot burnout and how I haven't really picked up a tarot deck in quite some time. Well, I was recently inspired by the lovely hashtag called It Takes a Village 2022, which was created by Boho Tarot, aka Don Michelle. This inspired me to pull out all of my tarot decks and associate a tarot deck with 9 of the characters in a tarot village. And I thought this was really on theme, really on brand for this type of the time of the year, because for some reason, either her thumbnail or just the thought of this tarot village reminded me of all of those ceramic villages that some of my folks have collected over the years with all these different characters, different buildings. So it just inspired me on so many levels to do this hashtag. So I'm very excited to share my 9 characters in the Tarot Village. And it really does take a village to bring me out of this tarot burnout. So I am highly appreciated of this hashtag, and I appreciate you for watching this video. So my first 2 characters in my tarot village is the guide and the teacher. Now, I am cheating right off the bat. I am combining these 2 characters essentially together because I'm going to be choosing the same deck. To me personally, it would make sense to choose a different deck for either of the prompts, just simply because it wouldn't feel right. So it's a personal issue for me, not necessarily the prompt itself. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way. For those who know me, you know what deck is going to come out, but it is my Grand Dame, the Everyday Witch Tarot. It is a Llewellyn deck, so it already has brownie points. This deck I choose as the guide, which is a personal deck. It is a deck that has been with me for quite a long time, since 2019, I believe. But when I was looking for a tarot deck, I wanted a deck that wasn't so stuffy and very old tradition, because the RWS artwork, the very traditional artwork, it just seems very stuffy and I cannot connect with it. So when I was looking up a tarot deck that was a little bit more modernized, something that I could really connect with or can be relatable, even though this has a very Harry Potter vibe. I'm not a big fan of Harry Potter, but I love the idea of how whimsical, fantastical this deck is. Now, for the teacher, which is the study deck, I choose this because, again, this has been with me since 2019, since the early stages of my tarot journey. This is one of the decks, one of the 2 decks that I have learned a vast majority of my tarot knowledge from this deck. It's just very easy to read. It's a little bit more modernized. It's something that, you know, I think anybody can pick up this deck and just kind of relate with it. Even if you no longer have this deck in your collection, you can, this is something, the artwork you can very appreciate about, and how it takes the core meaning of each tarot card and brings it to life. I really love that about the Everyday Witch Tarot. For the second character, or rather the third character, which is the Caregiver, which is the supportive deck. And this was a very easy choice for me. I have chosen the Affirmators Tarot. This is an animal-based tarot deck. It's very colorful. It's a really interesting deck to work with because it treats tarot like a friend. When you know you have a really good friend, when not only they call you out on your shit, but they also support that calling out with a gentle message. Even the most hardcore tarot cards, let's say the Tower. Oh, look at that. The Tower, the card is very disturbing, right? The meaning is disturbing, but when you go into the little guidebook, not little guidebook, the comprehensive guidebook, and it really lays out the message of, you know, this change is inevitable, but it is something that you need. And it also gives you a little bit of affirmation in the guidebook, which is really nice. It calls you out. It tells you like it is. It pulls no punches. Is that the phrase? I don't know. But it's really, it can be intense, but the guidebook really brings it down to a more, I guess, beginner friendly tone. Especially with the hardcore tarot cards, like the Three of Swords, the Tower. It's really, it has that classic imagery, but the guidebook is just really fun. It's lighthearted, and it really treats you like a really good friend. It's a very therapeutic deck, if I may say. So this is definitely a deck that I pick out when, I do need a supportive message, but I want some tarot with it, if you know what I mean. Like, I want that gut-wrenching tarot advice, but it comes with a friendly and supportive message. The next character in my tarot village is the Muse, which is a creative work deck. Now, I am not a creative person per se. Which I mean by that is I don't do creative work in terms of my job, or I don't create decks. And for my hobby, I don't really do creative things. However, when I was watching Dawn Michelle's video on this, she had mentioned putting out YouTube content, which that is a creative thing. So I'm going to take that and run with it. So the deck that I've ultimately chose for my Muse is the Light Seers Tarot, which is very ironic now that I'm just noticing this, but Chris Ann also did the Muse Tarot, which is a very bold, bright, and very creative deck. So that's very ironic. So when it comes to the Light Seers Tarot, I feel that there is an energy here that creates some type of spark, whether that's creativity spark, whether it's passion. It kind of evokes something within me or within whoever is looking at this. It is very emotional deck. There's a lot of characters in this deck. It's very charismatic. It's very modernized, which I really love that. Going back to the old stuffy traditional artwork, for many people, it's not relatable. But when it comes to these more modernized decks, it takes that classic artwork and elevates it. And that's what the Light Seers has done. It's a deck that I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I do. But once I got it in my hands, it is something that I really cherish and treasure. The next character in my tarot village is the Counselor, which is the family deck. Now, the way I'm using this prompt is I am using, or I have chosen a deck that feels like family. It feels like tradition. It feels like nostalgia. I have chosen the Golden Girls Tarot. Now, this is a family deck because on so many levels. One, I grew up watching this show, and I continuously watch this show pretty much every day. It is a very soothing and supportive show, and when it comes to the tarot deck, it gets the Golden Girls right. I didn't expect this deck to do that when it first came out, but when I had it in my hands and worked with it, it really does the Golden Girls justice. Now, not only did I grow up watching this deck, but when it comes to tradition, every time I would visit my grandmother's house, we would be watching old TV shows. This is a show that I would watch with my grandmother. It's just very nostalgia. So this is why I've chosen this as a family deck. Not only because of that, but it feels like family. These are these four girls who live together and they know each other and they just really care for each other. And when something is wrong, you know, they go to their kitchen and have that slice of cheesecake or that slice of chocolate cake, and they just sit around, talk through their issues and problems, and come to a resolution. The next character is the Priestess / Mystic, which is your spiritual work deck. Now, this one was a little bit of a challenge because I don't associate religion with tarot. It's not something I practice when it comes to tarot. In my personal journey, I read tarot seasonally, which I have seasonal decks. So the one deck that I ultimately chose, because it is a very seasonal deck, it captures every season in one deck. It is the Spacious Tarot. Absolutely love this deck. It is a pip deck, which that means there's no additional artwork except the number of the suits. So here we have the swords represent that wintry vibe where, you know, things are dying. It's very cold. And then the pentacles is when in that summer the fall, you have that harvest. You're working towards your goals. And then when it comes to the cups, it has that that spring vibe, that, you know, smell the roses that are blooming and all of that. And then when it comes to the wands, you have that fire energy, which is that summer, that 4th of July season, if you will. It's very hot and muggy. So when it comes to the way I enjoy tarot, it's very seasonal. So I have an altar in quotes. No, it's really a bookshelf. I have decks that I would put out that I would normally use or associate within that season, within the 4 seasons. And the Spacious Tarot just really captures all 4 seasons in one single deck. And that's why I really love it. And it is a pip deck, which is shockingly that I enjoy it, because I need that full artwork to fully grasp the meaning of the cards, but the Spacious Tarot just works. The next character is the Elder, which is the Sage Advice deck. Now, Dawn Michelle had mentioned in her video that this prompt is essentially a character where you see as a salty old grandma, which is someone who is very wise and will tell you like it is, and it's something that you will appreciate in the very end. So the deck that I've ultimately chose for the salty old grandma is This Might Hurt Tarot. Now, this deck has some disturbing images, such as the 3 of Swords. Anytime when you deal with an animal that's being put in this type of situation, it's very haunting, it's disturbing. So the way this deck works is it's very modernized, and it takes, again, the traditional old stuffy artwork and just kind of elevates it into the modern day. So when I see this as a salty old grandma, the images, no matter how haunting or how gut-wrenching they all have a lesson to be learned. And that's what makes this deck so great, because not only the images are very modernized and very up-to-date, the little guidebook that it comes with is just so relatable and so down-to-earth that even some of this traditional stuffy looking artwork here, even though it's semi-modernized, the little guidebook really brings it down to earth, and it makes that traditional artwork relatable. The next to the last character in my tarot village is the Outsider, which is a deck that doesn't belong. Now, the way I see this is that ultimately the way I've chose this prompt, or the deck for this prompt, is that it's a deck that I normally wouldn't have in my collection. It is a very different deck. It's not my aesthetic. It's not my jush. It's not something I would normally pick up, but there was something about it at the time that I've had to have it. And I don't think I'll, I don't think I'll ever part with it, because it has such a niche in my collection, and that is the Cirque du Tarot. So this is a circus themed deck. For starters, the color palette is very toned down. It's not very bright. It's not colorful. And of course, I have this deck in order because before my hiatus and creating YouTube content, I was going to do a walkthrough and a review of this deck, but c'est la vie. So the color palette is very toned down. Let me go into court cards. The circus theme has never really appealed to me, but there's something about this deck that really, I guess, I was eagerly to accept this type of challenge, because the court cards here are, this is a very controversial topic, because essentially every page is the same. Every knight, every queen, every king is essentially the same. There's just different colors. There's different little objects. They're all facing the same. It's just the way that these court cards have been written is just very controversial. So definitely, if you are interested in that, check out Dawn Michelle's walkthrough of this deck as well, because she was ultimately the one who encouraged me, without her knowledge, to get this deck. Would get this deck. It's not my aesthetic at all. But you know what? As an outsider character, even though you don't necessarily belong, it's kind of a, a breath of fresh air. It's something out of the ordinary. It's something to keep you on your toes. It's something that is just different, and you kind of need that. So I am really interested in kind of in a trance with this deck, because it's just so different. It takes the average tarot core meaning of each card and kind of go in it in a different way. It navigates the core meaning into I guess, a different way than what we normally have been taught. And of course, the guidebook, absolutely a must-have in terms of, getting to know this deck and understanding it. Without it, you would be SOL, shit out of luck. So this is one of the decks that you absolutely must read the guidebook front to back to completely understand this deck. And just like an outsider, it's a character that you need to really take the energy and get to know that person. And Cirque du Tarot is that outsider. The last character is the Stranger, which is the newest deck in your village. Now, this is not necessarily a new deck. I had gotten this back in October of 2022, which is this year, right before I kind of fell out with tarot, or had my little tarot burnout, or I'm not sure. Anyway, that is the Shadowland Tarot. It is a very shadow-based deck, so it really focuses on shadow work, but it has a kind of cutesy way of approaching shadow work, which shadow work can be very intimidating. I don't practice it. I don't do shadow work. So this kind of was a nudge, a gentle nudge of getting into shadow work, or in terms of, getting to getting established with shadow work, but not fully getting there. So all of these characters are very kooky, very, you know, kind of Halloween-y here. You have a ghost and you have these vampires. It's kind of my aesthetic. Well, it is my aesthetic, but the way this art is drawn, not necessarily my aesthetic, but I appreciate what these beautifully illustrated cards are. And honestly, even though it is kind of very shadowy, and it kind of, you know, gives the shadow of each card, you still can pick up that, I guess, a light, quote unquote, side of each card. And the guidebook, absolutely phenomenal. There is so much in the guidebook that it's very well worth the price of this this deck. So definitely, again, a deck that you have to read through the guidebook front and back to fully understand and fully grasp what the author, the creator, is going for in this deck. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed getting to know my characters in my tarot village, because it definitely does take a village. Until next time, I will see you for my next video. So take care and have a great holiday season.